NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitali joins us on the latest. Hey, Ali, good morning. So where do we go from here? How much support does Matt Gaetz have in this push to oust the speaker?
Well, look, we're actively trying to do that counting ourselves. And you know that as hard as we're trying, the Speaker's office and allies are trying even harder to understand just what he might have to do to keep his job. Because as many Republicans as he loses, over 4 or 5, depending on how many people are in the chamber, that's going to depend on how many Democrats he needs for support. And when we say support, that might not mean outright, yes, I vote to keep McCarthy. That might just mean voting present or not being in the chamber. This vote can happen at any point in the next 2 days. That's how long leadership has to actually buy themselves the time to sort of get their ducks in a row here. We don't know exactly when the vote is going to happen, but we know the outside parameters of what could govern it. So that's really what McCarthy is working within right now. The thing that I'm looking at as we sit here on Tuesday is whether or not there's any way that this vote could possibly stretch into Thursday. And the reason that I ask that is because that's the day that there are funeral proceedings and commemorations for the late Senator Dianne Feinstein of California. Many in the California delegation, many of whom are Democrats, would likely go home to attend those, and that could make an attendance issue on the Democratic side. That's just one of the things that I'm looking at. But if we're sitting here on Tuesday and he's only got 2 days, I'm not sure that the vote can stretch until Thursday. But again, it's a numbers game. It's not just how many Democrats does McCarthy need to get on board to offset the Republicans that he's going to lose. And right now I count 4 or 5. It's also a question of what's the total number in the chamber, because that changes the number that he's trying to count to keep his job.
And Ali, does Gaetz have anyone in mind to replace Speaker McCarthy?
Look, I asked this exact question yesterday because, as we've said a billion times and will probably say until we know a name, you cannot replace McCarthy with nobody. When I asked Gaetz this yesterday, he got kind of snippy about it, but then ultimately said that he wasn't going to offer any names. He himself was not running for speaker, but he thought that there could be people out there. Now, the names that we often hear, people like Jim Jordan, he's an ally of Speaker McCarthy. He's also running the impeachment inquiry. I don't get the sense that he wants this job. Someone like Tom Emmer, who's currently the whip in McCarthy's leadership operation, has said that he doesn't want this job. Steve Scalise is the number 2 Republican right now, maybe someone that we would have looked at, but the calculus has to, or maybe has changed because he's currently undergoing cancer treatment. That's something that Gaetz himself referenced yesterday, saying that Scalise could be someone, but because of his health right now, that's an open question.
So, and Gaetz said McCarthy's almost certainly going to need to rely on Democrats to keep his speakership. Do we have any idea what the Democrats are thinking here? What are they going to do?
Oh, man, this is the ultimate question. Aside from if not McCarthy, then who? Because I've talked to several moderate Democrats who may be open, but it's politics. You don't get something for nothing if you're McCarthy. And for Democrats, there would have to be concessions made with how the House is run, maybe certain pieces of legislation. I'm thinking, for example, about Ukraine funding. There are key things that there could be points of commonality on. McCarthy would have to concede those to Democrats in the same way that, frankly, he conceded to the hard line of his party to get this job in the first place back in January. Those conversations probably would have to happen. My understanding is they have not happened yet. And there are just as many Democrats, frankly, way more, the majority, who say this is a Republican problem. Let them figure it out. The chaos looks good for the Democrats politically.
Absolutely. Ali, before we let you go, I do quickly want to switch gears, talk about Leona Butler, set to be sworn into the Senate later today, taking the seat of the late Dianne Feinstein. What can we expect this afternoon?
Look, this is a swearing in that we expect to see later this afternoon, and it's the first moment that it could possibly happen because the Senate doesn't come back until today. Our understanding is that that swearing in will happen, and then you will now have a senator serving in the seat of the late Senator Dianne Feinstein. This week, though, will be shorter on the Senate side because of commemorations for Feinstein, as we mentioned. Those will happen on Thursday. But really, for Butler, I think the important thing to remember here is we will have an open question about whether or not she seeks the seat that she's currently having at Newsom's request. That's something that he said she was not banned or stopped from doing, but that's a very crowded primary field of California legislators who have already been in this race for months, who have been raising millions of dollars, and this is not going to be an inexpensive seat. I will say, as Butler is serving, she will now be the only Black woman serving in the Senate chamber. There hasn't been a Black woman serving there since then Senator Kamala Harris when she got elevated to VP.
Ali Vitali covering it all for us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.